Alright, so this is a tomato review for the Opalka tomato. It is an indeterminate tomato, and it appears to be a plum type tomato. So this tomato seemed to have been really sensitive to environmental conditions, but then again, all my tomatoes got pretty much wiped out by the heavy rains and then the earlier drought we had, and so on and so on. We had a heat wave that was over a week, was over 100, possibly 110 for like a week, and that really wiped out a lot of tomatoes. And it's not just one tomato, but this tomato from the beginning was getting blossom end rot even before all the heavy rains came in. So while the drought was happening, if I watered it a little too much, it got blossom end rot. It was like the only tomato plant doing it at that time. So it was very subject to it, but as soon as I stopped watering the tomato and I just left it alone, just don't water it no more, it didn't get blossom end rot anymore. So this tomato is very sensitive to its watering conditions. If you overwater this tomato, you're going to get blossom end rot. If you don't water it at all, it might slow its growth down, but I find the less you water this tomato, the less chances of you getting blossom end rot. So what I do is I water it really heavy in the beginning while the plant's growing and developing, and before it puts out any fruits, you got plenty of flowers on there. Once I start seeing fruits come out of it, I stop watering it. Give it water like every 2 or 3 days. Not heavily either, just a light watering, and that's it. Anything more than that, it seems like this tomato would get blossom end rot very easily. So here's a look at it from the inside. Okay, that's what it looks like there. Here's a good example of one. This is what they look like. They're generally a paste tomato, and this is a really good example. You can see on the bottom, it has the hull with a little nipple coming out of it. It's almost like that little nipple has a hood on it, if you want to use that term. And it kind of looks like that, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it has a nice shape to it. They come out pretty big. I've seen these getting as big as, so far, you know, about what you see here. 4 inches long, maybe 5 inches long. You might get some of them. And they get to about 1 inch wide. Here's a nice ripe one, almost too ripe. It seems like they get like an orange color and then they get red like this. But once they turn red like this, they get really soft. So my best advice for this type of tomato would be a sauce tomato. But just simply by the nature of the way the tomato ripens and stuff like that, it's really made for sauce. It's bred for that reason. But I don't know that for sure. I mean, I didn't read the literature on it, why it was originally created. But I would imagine that this tomato is bred for some kind of either paste or sauce. And you can see here, it's very, very juicy. It's dry in the middle, so let's cut open another one. You can see it's a hollow tomato, so it is like a Marzano tomato. I mean, don't let that throw you off if you're not into the Marzanos. I know a lot of people are turned off by Marzanos simply because of the difficulty growing them. It's like you might get 100 tomatoes, and out of that 100, 50 of them get blossom end rot. It's very hard to grow Marzano tomatoes. That's why I stopped growing them. I might do them again in the future. I'll do some more Marzano grows, and I'll do a review on them, but unless you got a perfect, I never tried hydroponics. Maybe in hydroponics, maybe I'll do better with a lot of these tomatoes. But I'm not the only one who complains about blossom end rot when it comes to the Marzano. It's just simply the nature of that tomato. It likes a certain type of growing condition, and anything outside of that, it will rot. So just keep that in mind. Let's do a bricks on it. It's 6 on the bricks. So that tells me right off the bat it's probably not going to be that sweet of a tomato. Now, keep in mind, when I tell you 6 on the bricks, when I tell you that, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a low sweetness tomato. What that means is it's just a whole, you're reading whatever's in solution to that tomato juice. That could be minerals, that could be, it could be nutrients, it can be the sugars, it can be all that stuff is in there, the enzymes. And that brings up that number. I mean, you can take tap water and put it underneath your brick scale, and you'll get a reading. A small reading, but you'll get a reading. That's because it's reading something it's reading the suspension is what it reads. So even though this is saying 6, that is generally telling me that the tomato is going to be lower in sweetness. Doesn't mean it's going to be lower in flavor, though. It just means it's going to be lower in sweetness. And with larger tomatoes, most larger tomatoes are going to, generally you're going to want them anywhere between 6 and 8. You're not really going to see large, beefsteak type tomatoes like this at, 10 and 12. Not normally. It's not normal for you to see a tomato that large in that high of a range in the bricks. So with these larger type tomatoes, outside of cherry tomatoes, the numbers you got to expect to be a little low. So 6, in this case, might be a high number. So let's do a taste test on it and see if it is. Now, I got to eat one of these that ain't totally... Some of these are so soft they're ready for sauce. I really can't eat them. This one's pretty ripe. Let's give it a go. Wow, that was watery. Very watery. This one was so ripe it literally melted in my mouth. Literally. I mean, as soon as I put it in my mouth, it turned into tomato sauce. The taste was really nice. I'm going to tell you that straight out. Now, here's one that's not so ripe. Let's see if that one's a little harder. When they're not so ripe, that flavor needs to develop a little bit. You start getting that green tomato flavor in it still when it's kind of like in that condition. But if you let them ripen until they're all the way red like this, wow, that would make a fantastic tomato sauce. I really like the taste of this tomato a lot for that reason. Eating it raw, probably not, because I'm not, the flavor and the way it isn't something I would want to eat on a raw basis, or raw on a regular basis. I would like to make sauce with this tomato. When I eat raw tomatoes, I like sweet cherry tomatoes, something quick and a lot of sugar in it. Want to get that fix while I'm out in the yard so I don't have to come in and eat. This tomato, on the other hand, is a tomato that and I'm the kind of person, when I make tomato sauce, I like to let my tomatoes ripen all the way to the point where you just squeeze them and the whole inside is almost completely broken down. It's almost sauce as it is. That's the way my grandmother made tomato sauce. That's what she would do. And that's the way I am. I like to wait until those tomatoes ripen all the way to the point where they're almost mashing up. You don't want to overwait until they turn into a liquid inside the skin, because at that point it goes rancid. The flavor goes sour. So there is a point where over-ripening can be no good. But you do want to get them all the way up to that certain point of ripeness where the sugars are completely converted over. They're still a little bit firm, but if you squeeze it, the whole inside comes out. And it separates from the skin. That's the way you want to ripen your tomatoes. This tomato seems to do it very easily. You shouldn't have any trouble doing that with it. Yes, you do got to watch it, because one day it could look like this. The next day it could be a pile inside of a skin laying on your windowsill. Literally, overnight it can do that. So you have to watch them on a regular basis, and you got to check them for firmness. If you start seeing it's soft on one side, you know that you're at that turning point. You know what I mean? You got to play with it a little while. You'll get used to doing it. But I'll tell you, as far as the sweetness goes on it, I would probably say 25 in the sweetness. Tang was probably about 35. The tomato flavor, though, was greater than all of those combined. That tomato flavor was really pronounced in this tomato. Very, very delicious type of sauce tomato flavor. I like saucy flavored tomatoes. And what I mean by that is like tomatoes that, I don't know, they just taste good in the sauce. When you make sauce with them, man, you're like, that was such a good tomato for sauce. I want to make more sauce with it. I like tomatoes like that. So, that really not much to say about it, other than it was a regular leaf tomato. It is a indeterminate tomato, and it is a Solanum lycopersicum as far as I know. I will put all that correct information down in the description. You can read about it. I just give you a quick what I know off the top of my head about it. Keep that in mind growing it. You're going to want to really pay close attention to how you water it. You're going to want to be very careful how you water it, and be very careful on the type of water you water it with. All right, so that was your tomato review for the Opalka tomato. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.